Welcome to St John's. We're still in the middle of this enhanced restrictions for COVID-19, but we're hopeful that on Friday of this week those restrictions will be lifted and we'll be able to resume COVID normal as we got used to. Things are looking good, and I certainly am hopeful that that change will occur on Friday morning. As I'm recording this, it's just before Joe Biden's inauguration in the United States, and I must admit I have a deep sense of foreboding about that event. So as you're viewing this about the same time as the inauguration is happening or just after, I'm hopeful that nothing dreadful will have happened. But having said that, something dreadful has happened in America. The riots of the past week show that there are deep divisions in that nation. In this coming week we will celebrate our own National Day, Australia Day, and in my written reflection this week I quote the poem "Let America Be America Again" by Langston Hughes. Langston Hughes was an American poet. He was an Afro-American. And he wrote about how the American dream was a fantasy for people like him. He was, of course, writing in the times of segregation, but as we know, there's still many divisions, even if they're not official, in that country. And that poem comes to me every year as we approach Australia Day, because it seems to me that built into Australia Day is a deep sense of dissonance, and we see that dissonance played out when we have citizenship ceremonies on the one hand and protests talking about invasion on the other. And Langston Hughes's poem "Let America Be America Again," which sort of unmasks the way in which America tells itself a deceitful lie, really hits home to me. And my prayer is that Australia will discover a way to resolve its own dissonance before it bubbles up in a way that is as toxic as what's happening in the United States of America. So I find myself becoming really deeply prayerful and reflective every year as we get to the end of January. As I mentioned, we are hopeful that the lockdown is ending at the end of this week. That means that we probably won't have to have our masks on when we come to worship on Sunday. I know it was quite a different experience to be at worship on Sunday. I think one of the take-home messages, though, is that it's always worth carrying a mask, and that if we need to, say, at a place where we really are not able to observe physical distancing, that we put it on. And so there are times when we are gathered together in community when physical distancing is difficult, and it's against our nature, of course, to stand at such a distance from one another. So it will be helpful if you bring your mask with you and use it as is appropriate. We are still really much in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic. What's going on in the United States and the UK and parts of Europe and India are really quite devastating, and I'm just so grateful that in Australia firstly, people get the idea of communitarianism, actually looking after one another, doing something for the sake of the other, and also that on the whole our political leadership is giving really clear leadership based on science. On Sunday just gone, the second of the introductory sessions for the journey occurred. At the end of that session, the group decided it would like to continue to meet. And so each Sunday at 4 o'clock, for an hour, we are hosting a meeting, which we will do on Zoom. It's actually working really well on Zoom. We'll do it on Zoom. We're hosting a meeting which allows us to explore how our life story, how the narrative of our life intersects with the faith story. It's been a really rich experience, and I'm really grateful to the participants for the way in which they have engaged in the process of learning how to reflect more deeply on their own lives and how the faith touches their life. This week, as we meet, we're going to be exploring the question, what is the question that my life is asking? What is the question that's bubbling up within me as I live my life now? So it's not so much an intellectual question, even though there is plenty of room to explore those questions as well, but it's that idea of, as I'm living my life now, what am I noticing as a question that seems to be bubbling up? What is my life asking as a question? So if you'd like to join us for the journey, please check out the details on the Cathedral website. Lent will begin with Ash Wednesday in the middle of next month, so it's only just a few weeks away now. Mother Kate has done a fantastic job of gathering with Bishop Bill a collection of studies and books and resources for us to use. The Lenten brochure will be produced in the next week or so, and that will give you time to consider what you would like to do during the Lenten time. As part of preparing for Lent, as always, we are collecting the palm crosses that we distributed last year, even though that distribution happened in a very different way. We're collecting those palm crosses so on the Sunday before Ash Wednesday we can burn them to create the ash that we will use for Ash Wednesday. So please do bring in your palm crosses so that we can gather them up and burn them in that wonderful little ceremony at the end of the Sunday before Ash Wednesday, where we take the crosses as symbols of the life we have lived, and it's been a complex life during these COVID times. We take those crosses as a sign of the life we have lived and offer them to God, and then later in Lent, on Palm Sunday, we receive new palm crosses as we enter into the resurrected time, the opportunity to express that which is new and exciting. Later in February, we will be having our Visioning Day. It's an important opportunity for us to gather as a community to work out what God might be asking of us to do this year, to spend time together noticing what's emerging, what needs attention, how we might address some of the big issues that face both the church and the wider world and humanity as a whole. So I do ask you to consider putting aside that day to join us. Everyone has something to offer to such a process, and I'm always inspired by the richness of the process that we engage in together. And finally, to birthdays. Today we say happy birthday to Nicholas Hughes and to Tony Howe. I hope you guys have a great day. So as Sunday approaches, I hope that we have the opportunity to gather together. I hope many of you will be able to return to the cathedral as we see the restrictions loosened again, and as we can sit in closer proximity again. Last Sunday was quite stark, but I think we have done a great job in Queensland to ensure that we are keeping one another safe. We are constantly grateful for the work that the community does to nurture the community, and worship is the high point of that experience. We are, of course, always mindful, and one of the acts we do as we are preparing to gather is think about the people who are unable to be with us. So please be assured that even if you're not present, you are present in our hearts. Peace be with you.